All right, folks, this is Jack Antonio coming at you for Do You Know Jack radio show from Yellowknife all the way over to Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Today with my guest, Jeremy Hiebert of Comeback Kid. How you doing, man?
Can't complain. Weather's good. Not on tour yet. I will enjoy that when it happens, but just enjoying the time off.
Yeah, well, you've had a little bit of time off this summer, from what I understand. I mean, what do you, I know there's family, there's a little one, but I mean, what do you do in your downtime?
I do have two part-time jobs that I kind of go between. One is construction with my brother, so when things are crazy busy for him, he's like, "Can you give me a hand?" And I can always use the money, so the answer is often yes. And then I also work at a crisis stabilization unit for teen girls that are kind of caught up in the getting recruited for the sex trade and whatnot. So it just provides like a safe place for them when they get picked up and need to have a better situation at home or whatever, where their social worker can figure that out. They got a safe place at our unit. So those are the two things that I kind of occupy, or that I do when I'm home. But I'm also a dad. So when mom's at work, I'm full-time dad too.
Well, that's amazing, especially when you're in a working and touring band, that you can, come off tour and get to spend time with the little guy, because I mean, speaking as a parent myself, that time goes by awfully quickly. It's like a blink of an eye, and they're, a lot older than they were the last time. I was just thinking now, Winnipeg, I mean, it's maybe no less tough than any other urban center in Canada per se, but I mean, this is a pretty tough town you guys are coming from. I mean, do you think that's why, there's a few relatively well-known punk rock acts that come out of there?
It's hard to say. Like, I mean, it could be an overall maybe sleigh effect, just in general, but I don't know. I think most of us came from pretty good homes and whatever lives, so we didn't have too much of that rough and tumble street life, but it's definitely all around.
Yeah, for sure. Well, now I'm thinking about, Ken Mode being a band that I've interviewed several times over the last couple of years. I mean, now, I know maybe Ken Mode is sort of more in the noise rock end of the spectrum, but I mean, is the scene with those Winnipeg bands pretty tight? Like, could you just drop by Shane and Jesse's place and they'd be like, "Hey, how's it going?"
I'm definitely friends with them. We're not quite that tight, but I also think age is a bit of a factor.
Yeah.
I'm 41 now, so I don't hang out nearly like I used to around the time when the band started, which would have been when we were everybody just hanging out wherever. We'd all play shows together, so then there'd be a house party. We'd all go to the house party together. It didn't matter really.
Yeah.
Like our like the genres weren't quite so cut and clear cut as they are now.
Yeah.
There's a lot more of that overlap that I noticed from back when I was a kid. So
Fair enough.
yeah, it's still a relatively tight scene, though. I'm not going to speak for everybody. I'm just giving my own experience. But yeah, just as an older person, I definitely don't hang out nearly as much as I used to. I definitely miss that life, but I'm also enjoying the current life of fatherhood. So
yeah. Well, you're not quite at that get off my lawn stage of the aging process yet, though. Well, listen, now the big news about Comeback Kid, of course, is that coming up on September 8th, you guys are releasing your 6th full length. It's called Outsider. And, from what I understand about the entire process, usually it's just you and Andrew that do the lion's share of the writing, but Stu was in on this way more than he's ever been before.
Right. Yeah. So the first record that he was around for, he didn't really partake in the writing too much. He helped out with one song, like on Die Knowing, because he joined in the band in
2012.
Oh, 2012, yes. That's about 5 years ago. So, on this record, he definitely wanted to be more part of the process. And, he definitely came up with some great ideas.
Was when he joined, I guess I'm just thinking now in terms of the whole process here. Like, were a lot of the songs for Die Knowing already written when he joined in 2012, or like, was it just you and Andrew kind of being set in your ways, or?
I think it more just set in our ways, yeah, because especially since Kyle was still in the mix then, it was just, we just kind of had our way of doing things. We just kind of come up with our ideas and then, grind them out with Kyle and whatnot. So this time was a little different. We wanted to, be a little more inclusive type of thing, which, I'm not going to lie, I get a little nervous about just because I'm very happy with our previous records.
Yeah.
And can always feel like, we still got gas in the tank as far as the creativity goes. But at the same time, many of the other guys wanted to be, more involved now as well. So, and just as a band, it just seemed to make more sense. So, yeah.
What does Stu bring to the table when he's working with you guys?
That's hard to say. What would I think? He comes from, I guess, a little more of a punk rock and metallic background, more than Andrew and I. Like, so I think just as far as like the more metallic direction that the band has, how do you say it? Naturally gravitated to, I think, and especially that last record, Die Knowing, you could, the front half of the record, it definitely just had that harder kind of vibe. And so I think he definitely, would feel more at home with that than say like the previous stuff, like Turn It Around and Wake the Dead. Like, that's just my opinion. That might not be his opinion, but I think, just coming from that background, he comes from a strong punk rock background. Of course, he was in Misery Signals too. So
that's right. Yeah.
That's where his, in my head, that's where his strong points would be. And, he definitely showcased a lot of that style, on the new record. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, speaking of that metallic sheen, you brought in Devin Townsend on the song "Absolute" to do his sort of trademark thing that he does vocally, which was really cool. And what I noticed about the riff in that song too is it's almost groove metal in a spot there.
Which part are you talking about?
It's the
At
one
the
that
end,
goes,
or
it's the one that goes dun, 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 kind of like that,
Right.
It's very groovy.
Although the funny part with that song is I wrote that song all over the last decade or so. Like the very end of that song, the breakdown, the dun, 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 like that was just something I've had in my back pocket for over a decade now. It was kind of my go-to in sound checks, and then I wrote the front half of that song, and it just seemed to kind of meld into there, kind of naturally. I wasn't sure if the other guys would be into it, but they ended up being down with it. And then I don't know, it's just kind of pull, like for that last part there, that it almost has a bit of that 90s metallic hardcore vibe going on there. But yeah, as far as the Devin thing, like Andrew's just building his vocals over that drawn out ringing part, and he was kind of channeling his Devin Townsend inside him. And we were just like, well, why don't we see if he'd be down to throw some stuff on there as well. So yeah.
Well, and he has a bit of a history with you guys, from what I understand too. So it might not have been as hard to get Devin as maybe most people would think.
No, and yeah, for us, we kind of had that insider advantage because Andrew's other band, Sights and Sounds, recorded their first record, Monolith, with them. And then Stu also, in Misery Signals, did a record with them. So we definitely had that connection there. It was just a matter of whether he'd be into that, because he's on another level. So we were very grateful that he was down to do it.
For sure, man. Well, this is a popular topic nowadays to get into, but I mean, I think now if I do the math, you guys have been at this off and on, because I think there was a bit of a hiatus, but I mean, for about 15 years, you guys have been doing the Comeback Kid thing. I mean, in 15 years, Jeremy, I mean, what do you know now that you didn't know then? And I mean, you could even take it back further for when you guys were doing the Figure 4 thing. Like, what do you guys know now as musicians and bandmates that maybe you would have wanted to tell yourselves 15, 20 years ago?
Oh boy, that's a good question. I guess the main thing would be just how the music comes about. I I think like you have so much time in between records to write music
Mm-hmm.
that it's so easy just to leave it to the last minute. And I'm not gonna lie, a lot of the best stuff comes when you're under the gun, and you like. Sometimes we almost have to just book studio time just to get ourselves more in gear, because like nothing's ever good enough. Nothing's ever, you come up with this and but then once it's crunch time, then all of a sudden the things that were kind of on the fence or whatever, they become these great parts, because you have to make them better. You have to give them that body. So I guess if I could tell myself, even now, currently, like just stick with ideas a little longer, because sometimes just the simplest thing can really evolve once somebody else puts their thing on it. Because so much of our writing is just done individually at the beginning, right? Come up with the riff, and then it's like, I think this is good enough, to then present it. Whereas maybe there's a lot of other ideas that I'm starting to realize now that probably could have gone somewhere, had I not been quite so bashful maybe about it. Sometimes I'll be honest, I get embarrassed about my ideas, because it's like, maybe they're a little out there for this band, or this or that. But sometimes they kind of get drawn into, just our I don't want to say formula, but we kind of have that sound that we can, pull out of so many riffs that when you just hear them plain Jane as they are, it's like, there's no way this could be a comeback in song. And there's a few songs on this record where it's like that Consume the Vision, like that one at first, I was like, really? This is somehow going to become a comeback in song? But then once all the layers get added, and it's like, this is now cool. It's different. But it's still us, like it's not like a song that we have really on any of the other records, but it still totally works on a comeback in record. You wouldn't want the whole record to have songs like that, but it also doesn't stand out in a weird kind of a way. I don't think. Somebody might have a different opinion than me, but yeah.
Well, listen, Jeremy, it's been awesome talking with you today, all the way over in Winnipeg, and I wish you guys all the best. And for all intent and purpose, I've checked out the record, and Outsider, which is coming out September 8th, is another brilliant piece of music by Comeback Kid. So congratulations there.
Thank you kindly. I appreciate that.
All right, man. You have a good day, eh?
All right. You too.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.